All right, guys, let's kick off part 2 here real quick. Let's start talking about public goods. Public goods are products that everyone consumes. It could be roads, bridges, it could be even the military, national defense, things that everyone gets. You don't discriminate between who gets and who doesn't get it. The market does not really supply these goods because it produces only items that can be withheld if people refuse to pay for them. So if you go to, say you go to Dick's Sporting Goods and you want to buy a new pair of running shorts. Well, if you don't pay for those running shorts, Dick's has the opportunity to withhold that from you. It's part of an agreement between producers and consumers. If public goods are to be supplied, the government usually has to provide them. So this is a market failure because the market doesn't really account for it. The government has to get involved and provide the public goods like national defense, roads, bridges, things like that. There's also some instability in the pricing system. This is another weakness, one of the limitations of the pricing system. Flexibility makes the price system responsive to changes in supply and demand. So if supply changes, demand changes, pricing can be flexible to that. But during times of crisis, like a natural disaster, like Hurricane Katrina down in New Orleans a couple of years ago, the flooding recently in New Orleans, if there's a war, like the war in Iraq recently, prices can swing greatly, so greatly the market will not function smoothly. One of the reasons the gas prices started to really fluctuate heavily when I was in high school and college was the war in Iraq. With all the instability in the Middle East, it caused the prices in oil to go up, which caused the prices in the gas pump to go up. And they went up drastically. The prices swung greatly from day to day, week to week. So the market doesn't really account for that type of instability. So that's a limitation. The government, we talked about this quite a bit, they also intervene and get involved in the pricing process as well. They can set two different types of deals. They can set what we call price ceilings, where they basically, this is as high as you can go. This is the highest point that you can charge. You cannot charge above this particular price point. For example, rent control. The government might step in and say, okay, in low-income areas, people can't really afford to pay high rent costs, so we're going to put a price in there. We say that you can't charge, if you own an apartment complex, you can't charge more than $150 a week, whatever it might be, for that price ceiling. Well, you also have price floors, which the government says this is the lowest amount you can charge. You can charge anything you want above it. You can't go below this price. For example, farm subsidies would be an example. The minimum wage would also be an example. $7.25. They can't pay you less than $7.25 legally. Now, sometimes they do, but legally they cannot pay you less than $7.25. It's a price floor. But there are certainly consequences that go along with government intervention in pricing. So let's skip to some of this. All right, let's go back to... There we go. So remember, a price ceiling. If you set a price ceiling, usually that's going to result in a shortage because quantity demanded is going to exceed quantity supplied. So if there's a price ceiling, they're saying they're lowering the price. Price ceilings are helping consumers. So if you lower the price, the law of demand says demand goes up. But law of supply says if you lower the price, supply goes down. So with a price ceiling, supply is going to go down, demand's going to go up, demand's going to be higher than supply, which is going to lead to a shortage. The price floors is the opposite. Price floors are established to help producers. A price floor causes the price to usually go up. So if the price goes up, supply is going to go up, but the price goes up according to the law of demand, demand goes down. So supply in that situation would be higher than demand, which would lead to a surplus, which is not something that you want to have. Okay, guys, let's quickly get into the stages of production. There's 3 stages. So when you're talking about a stage of production, you're talking about how many workers do you need to operate at maximum efficiency. At stage 1, this is called increasing marginal returns. And this is the first stage. At this stage, there are more resources than there are workers. As more workers are hired, production becomes more and more efficient. So as you keep hiring new worker after new worker after new worker, you keep producing more and more and more of the goods. That's increasing marginal returns. Stage 2 is what we call diminishing marginal returns. This is when you get to the point where you add more workers. The more workers you add, the total output continues to increase, but it increases in smaller increments bit by bit by bit. I'm going to show you a graph here. I'll explain this in a second. And stage 3 is where you don't want to be. Stage 3 is negative return. This is where too many workers have been hired. I mean, look at all these people that have been hired. And some people have been hired that they're no longer working at maximum efficiency. There's more workers than there are resources. So let's say you have 100 workers, but you only have 95 assembly lines. So that's 5 workers who are not going to be working on the assembly line. So it's tough. Or let's say you have 100 workers and you only have 75 hammers. Well, if you need a hammer to do the job, that means 25 workers at any given time aren't going to be able to work. They're just sitting there getting paid, doing nothing. That's inefficient production right there. So you can see right here, stage one. Here's stage one. The total output rises, and as the total output rises, incrementally, you continue to increase the marginal product. That keeps going up. As you get to stage put, the output continues to increase at a slower rate, but now you see diminishing marginal returns. The marginal return is diminishing. Total output's still going up, but the marginal returns are slowly but surely decreasing. They're diminishing. And in stage 3, you get to negative marginal returns. You can see you fired too many workers, and your total product's going down, and your marginal product, of course, is going to go down as well. So you can see here graphically, increase in marginal returns, then you get to diminishing marginal returns. It's going up at only incremental rates, and then you get the negative returns where it's now going down. All right, guys, that is it for the Microecon Part 1 review. Microecon Part 2 will start next week.